Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy here, and we are back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. Now today, we're going to go ahead and take a look at a tier list that I made here for all of the inheritable A-slot passives. Well, I guess not all of them, but all of the notable ones at the very least, and anything that was similar was grouped together, so like all the clash skills would be going in there, all of the like distant and close counter skills would be going in there, and etc, etc. All the push skills are there, all the ideals, all the catches. So they're all grouped together pretty much in terms of like classification, and we're going to go over why these tiers are the way that they are. Now, also, this video was a request by the homie Witcher Soda. Shoutouts to Witcher Soda for this one. So he says, could you please make a video talking about passive skills you could put into a group and talk about the optimal passive of a type and possible substitutes that are of poorer quality? Yeah, so I'm sure he wants to know about substitutes in the event that he doesn't have access to the fodder and he's looking for the next best thing that's easy to get. So yeah, that's definitely something we're going to take into mind here while we're talking about this tier list. Also, I'm taking requests, by the way. So if you've got an idea for a video, just go ahead and leave it in the comments section down below, and if I like it, I'll go ahead and do it. Alright, so let's get started here without any more dilly-dally. So in the S tier, it should go without saying, these are the power skills. If you can get your hands on any of these, then these are the premier skills you want to give to your units. So starting off with Flared Sparrow for your player phase units. It's very tricky seeing the difference between Flared Sparrow and some of its cousin skills. So this one over here is Surge Sparrow. You can tell the difference because Flared Sparrow has the wavy lines, and then for Surge Sparrow, the lines are very straight. And then also for regular Swift Sparrow, it doesn't have the second row of lines as Flared Sparrow and Surge Sparrow do. So that's how you can tell them apart. And then it's completely reversed 180 degrees for Remote Sparrow. The symbol is flipped, so you can tell the difference pretty easily with those. Alright, so Flared Sparrow is just nuts. Like, what the hell were they thinking with this? It gives you +7 true damage on the first combat, and also attack and speed up 7 when you initiate. Then it sets up a row of fire tiles based on which direction you attack the enemy from. And then also, if you attack an enemy that's already on a fire tile, they're taking 14 true damage at the start of combat there. And then at the start of the enemy turn, if they're standing on a fire tile, they take an additional 7 chip damage. So, like, the amount of damage you get out of Flared Sparrow is absurd. It's bonkers, man. This skill is so dumb. But there is a catch. It's only available to infantry and, or not infantry, it's only available to cavalry and flyer types, and all weapon types can get it. So your infantry type units are going to be looking for something else, right? So they're not able to use this, so that's where attack and speed finish comes in. This is probably the best attack and speed boosting skill, and just finishes in general, like all the different stat combinations. This skill is really powerful. It gives you double stats +7, so in this case attack and speed. It gives you +5 true damage when you trigger a special, and then you recover 7 HP after combat. So just doing so many things. You're getting stats, you're getting bonus damage, and recovery. So for infantry types, the finish skills are always going to be an option for them. Now we have Distant Attack and Speed Solo, another power skill that I have no idea what the hell they were thinking with this. It's literally just Attack and Speed Solo, giving Attack and Speed up 5 if you're not adjacent to an ally at the start of combat. And then you get Distant Counter. Like, yeah, just because. So dual phase as well, unlike some of these that we're going to take a look at later that are not dual phase, or the ones that inflict chip damage and don't have dual stats. Like, this is... They were cooking something crazy with this. So, Distant Attack Speed Solo, can't wait for the other skill or other stat splits to be getting for this skill. Next up, we have Scowl, level 4. So, this one's only for dragon types. So, when you're a dragon type, this would be your go-to A skill. It's going to give you attack and res up 7, and then if the enemy has a pre-charged special or just at the start of combat, if your res is better than the enemy's res +5, then you do -1 special trigger on them before they attack. So let's say you're up against a Duo Crom who has a pre-charged Deadeye. He's going to attack you. If you've got more res than him, then you just turn off his Deadeye. And this combos really nicely with Guard as well. If you have Scowl and Guard anywhere else on your kit, you can really hurt the enemies and deny them of using specials. So it just makes your tanks that much sturdier. Next up, we have Fire Flood Boost 3, which is a really crazy skill. I can't wait for the other stats for this one. So this one right now does attack and res up 7 for both phases as long as your HP is over 50%. It also inflicts guard on the enemies, and then you get HP up 5 for free. So even more stats, just more and more stats. This basically replaced the split stance level 3s that inflict guard, and then they give you 2 stats up 6. And this is dual phase. So you're getting the stats on both phases with the guard and then also with HP up 5. So I think these are just better now than the split stances. The only thing is that we only have this one stat combination at the moment. And also the other thing is that you got to be over 50% HP. So could be a steep condition, but for the most part, it's giving you exactly what you want. And then finally, we have Attack and Speed Hexblade here, which is also a really good skill for infantry types. So this one gives you attack and speed up 7 on both phases, which is already really good. And then at the start of the turn, if you are within 2 spaces of a magic type enemy or magic type ally, you're getting a status that gives you Hexblade that allows you to deal adaptive damage. So another really good power skill here. It's going to let you do a lot more damage than you should. Most tanks nowadays do have a good balance of defense and res, so maybe you won't get like a crazy amount of extra damage from this, but there are a lot of older tanks that do not have a nice split of defense and res, like Brave Hector. So this is a very nice option, and it just adds to your damage while giving you double stats on both phases, so I don't see any reason why this shouldn't be an S tier. Okay, next up we have the A tier. I would say these are still quite powerful skills, and they do fit on builds if you're running specific things. So, for example, Attack and Speed Clash, or just any Clash in general, can give you the most dual phase stats overall. Like, you're getting potentially Attack and Speed up 10 from this if the enemy or you end up moving 4 spaces in combat, and if at least 2 spaces are moved in combat before attacking by you or the enemy, then you also nullify your penalties to those 2 stats. So these are really strong too. The only problem with these is that they can not have that much effectiveness if you're attacking from a standstill. So you do have to at least make sure you're moving a little bit before you attack using these. And moving 4 spaces, there's only a handful of units that can even do that. So that's the other downside to these. Next up, we have Remote Sparrow over here. There's also Remote Sturdy and Remote Mirror to consider. These skills give you the double stats up 7, so for this one it's attack and speed. Then you also get 30% DR on the first attack the enemy does. So just giving DR to your player phase units that are mainly glass cannons could allow them to survive and get to their second attack, which is very, very huge for them if they have the special ready on the second attack. So this is a really nice skill for adding to your survivability and damage. Then we have Attack and Speed Unity, which converts penalties into bonuses, which is really good. This is potentially an S tier skill if you have Legendary Robin on the team who's debuffing all of your guys. But because it comes at a little bit of a extra investment, you have to have specific units. I can't have it in S tier. You need a little bit of setup for this one. Bracing Stance level 3 and all of the other cousins of this skill are not quite as good as the Fire Flood boost, so I would say this is just a tier below, although it is still nice, and it's a little bit more consistent because you don't need to be over an HP condition, but it's only enemy phase, whereas this is dual phase, so that's why I would give the boost to this one. Next up, we have Solid Ground and also Still Water, and Life and Death. I guess we can also mention that as well, and Fury 4. All of these are giving you visible stats, which none of these other skills here are giving you visible stats for the most part. They're all in combat. So if you're running skills like AoE specials that require you to have visible stats, then these are your go-to. Also, Fury 4 with the chip damage allows you to ensue a bunch of antics, like you can use Wings of Mercy or Escape Route and such to set up combos with this. And unlike Push level 4, it doesn't wear off. So, like, the level 4 push skills, once you fall below 25% health, they stop working. So that's not the case with Fury 4, so I think it definitely deserves a mention in this tier here. And then finally, we have the Bond level 4s, which I think are also pretty good. They're nice on armored units, because armored units are always going to be adjacent when they save a unit with a save skill. So they can play up pretty well with those types of units, and also they nullify your penalties and give you the double stats up 7 when you're adjacent to an ally. So these are pretty nice. And it's also dual phase stats, so you can't go wrong with that. Alright, next up we come to the B tier over here. So these are where I would say this is like the cutoff. Like, any skills you see in here are still pretty runnable and still pretty meta. And then once we get below that, that's where things start to taper off a bit. So if you're able to give any of these skills to your units, this is still pretty acceptable. Like, for example, the catch level 4s and the ideal level 4s, they may not be the meta anymore, like as crazy as some of the new stuff, but they still offer the dual phase stats and they are pretty good. So if you're able to get your hands on these, they still work pretty well on your units. Catch would be for your flyers and your cavalry types, while ideal would be for your armor and your infantry types. So these two can also give you +9 depending on if you meet the condition. For the catch skills, the enemy can't be on full HP. Or, no, the enemy has to be on full HP, and then they have to have a bonus to get the full +9. Or if you meet either of those conditions, then you only get +7. For the ideal skills, you have to be on full HP or have an active bonus to get the +9. Or if you only have one of those things, you get the +7. Attack and speed push 4 and all of its cousins are over here. I think Fury 4 is at this point just a little better, because we have better ways to get the dual stats on dual phases now than just having this. So push 4 lasted quite a while, but now it's not quite as good as some of the new stuff. So I have it down here, but it's still worthwhile, and it could still give you the chip damage to set up like Fury 4 on certain skills, so it's worthwhile to be in here. Alright, then we have Close Foil. It's actually kind of alarming how well Close Foil aged. So it gives you dual stats up 5 on the enemy phase when foes attack you, and then it also gives you close counter. So, pretty good, except the only condition is you don't get close counter against dragon-type enemies. So that's the one area where this skill could be a little bit weak, but it's... I would say it's still kind of competing with Close Reversal and Close Stance and, like, all of the close skills that are giving you close counter and stats on the enemy phase. So, this skill actually hung in there pretty well. Then we have Distant Dart. We talked about this just now kind of with this. This lets you close counter against dragon types unlike these, but you only get one stat level 5. So, just keep that in mind. Then we have Distant Dart over here, along with like Distant Ferocity and all of its cousins. Gives you distant counter and then a stat up 5 on the enemy phase, but it's only giving you one stat up 5, and it's only on the enemy phase, whereas distant attack speed solo, which is better, like I said earlier, is dual phase, and you get the distant counter, and you get 2 stats +5, so it's just better. Then we have these over here. This is CloseSalvo, and this one is Distant Pressure. So the pressure skills and the close skills here, these cause chip damage, but you're getting the stats on both phases. So, like, this one gives you attack up 5 on both phases and close counter. This one gives you speed up 5 and also distant counter, but you're taking 5 chip damage, and the stats stop giving out once you fall below 25% health. So, similar to the push skills there, these can stop working, which is a little bit... You don't lose out on the distant counter or close counter, but you lose out on the stats, which could be a little bit bad. So that's why I have them down here. They can still set up, though, like similar to Fury 4 and also Push 4. The chip damage can be used to your advantage in some situations. Although, using skills like close counter and distant counter would ensue that you're using, like, some kind of bait unit or a, like, tank type of unit or something of that nature. So those types of units don't really want to be taking chip damage, so I would recommend something else for them probably. Alright, next up we have Flash Sparrow over here. This one came on Alchrist, and this skill, it's a pretty interesting skill. I think the only thing I don't like about it is that the stats are not dual phase. You only get the attack and speed up 7 on the player phase with this, and then you're also gaining a special cooldown acceleration per hit if your speed is better than the enemy's speed -5. So it's got a very lenient condition there. You're getting speed up 5 for the check essentially, which is very easy to get. So that is nice about it. And you can also use it to break through guards. So if the enemies have guard on their tank, then you hit them twice with this and you're probably going to get your special to activate in combat. So that is good about this. But again, the stats are not on dual phase, which I kind of don't like too much about it. Still though, like I said, B tier, anything in B tier is still usable. Alright, then we've got Close Defense 4 and Distant Defense 4. These both are still kind of useful on your tank units, your armor bait units, and etc. They do defense and res +8 if you're up against a close enemy or a distant enemy. And then they also nullify the enemy's bonuses. So if they have pesky effects like Treachery or Blade Tome or anything of the like, you can just turn that off and become even more of a tank. But these are only enemy phase stats that you're getting, and they also only work on specific enemies. So close defense only works on close type of enemies, and distant defense only works on distant type of enemies. So they can like clash a little bit. Sometimes you may want an Omni tank that can deal with both close and distant enemies alike, and in which case these aren't really going to do you the best. So that's why I have them in B tier. Next up, we've got Fortress Defense and Res. This one gives you visible stats to defense and res, which can be nice, particularly in Aether Raid's offense for Light Season. Or, well, yeah, you would want to give this to Milla so that she can get over any stray dancing Eldigans you may find in Light Season. And then, similar, you would want to give this to Dancing Eldigans so he can possibly avoid Milla. So, yeah, there are definitely some units that want to have the visible stats to defense and res, so that's why I have that there. And then finally, we have attack and speed. What is this even called again? Hold on, I forgot the name of this. It's like all the way at the very top. These are the ones that activate for Aether Raid specifically. I just can't remember the name of them at the moment. Let's see. All right, so it's attack and res offense, and then attack and res defense. ARD are the skills you want to go for. The offense Aether Raid skills, I would say, aren't really the best, because they only activate specifically in Aether Raids, whereas why bother doing that when you could just run one of these that work on like every game mode, right? So that's why the Aether Raids 01s I don't think are that good. But Aether Raids defense can be useful because you're getting potentially +11 to 2 different stats. So for attack res or Aether Raids defense, attack and speed 4, if you're on a defense team in Aether Raids, you're getting 2 stats up 11 potentially if you've got 5 or more structures remaining on your team. So if you're running something like a Cav line or a Hinoka line where you can just park all of your structures all the way in the back and keep them out of harm's way, then you may be able to get some nice mileage out of this. There are also dual phase stats, so that is another bonus, but only working in Aether Raids I think is like kind of baloney. Honestly, you're better off just running one of these other skills instead, so that's why this is in B tier. So that's pretty much the cutoff point. Anything from B tier and up, I would say, is worthwhile. The stuff in B tier is way easier to get because we have a lot of combat manuals that have these skills, and the stuff in the S tier is like the go-to mouth-watering juiciness that you want to put on your units right now. So a pretty solid mix of skills here. Finally, we have C and D tier where things just start to fall off. C tier is like a little bit better than D tier, but not by that much. So Surge Sparrow, I'm not really too big on this skill. There are a few units that can combo nicely with it, like Brave Seliph, for example, where he can just recover his HP and maintain miracle range. But even on him, I don't really like this that much. I'd rather get the dual phase stats like from Clash level 4 for Seliph, because he wants to be able to have the speed to win checks on both phases. That's going to add to his survivability the most. So I'm not the biggest fan of Surge Sparrow, even on Seliph, who probably makes the best use of it. Then we have the Brazen level 4s, a forgotten tier of skill. I mean, the Brazen skills are still kind of okay if you can like set up and get below HP, because they give you dual stats up 7. In this case, it's, what is it, attack up 9 and then speed up 10? Like that's a crazy amount of stats to be getting on both phases. But you have to be below 80% health, which is not really the easiest to do unless you're running a Vantage build and you're setting up the Wombo combo with like Bernadetta to chip your health, and then you go ahead and use Reciprocal Aid to like dump your health even more to get Vantage. Like those specific types of strategies are where you would want the Brazen skills, but I can't really recommend these, and they're not even going into the other stat splits level 4s. We only got this one here, so that's why that's in C tier. Then we have Heavy Blade 4, which is just not as good as Flash Sparrow, even though Heavy Blade 4 can be given to all movement types for some reason. I don't know why they restricted Flashing Blade and Flash Sparrow like that. These can only be given to infantry types, while Heavy Blade can be given to anybody. So it does have a little bit of an edge in that regard, but it's not quite as good as Flash Sparrow, and it's certainly not quite as good as some of these other, like, universal skills. For example, distant attack speed solo, you can just put on anybody. Like, it has no restrictions. So that's just dumb, man. Like, this skill is not able to compete. Swift Sparrow 3 has been completely phased out by all of its cousins. They're all better. So this could probably be even in D tier, but it's still given, like, worthwhile stats at least. So we can have it in C tier at the most. We got Sturdy Impact and all of its cousins over here in C tier. The stats you get from this are actually not too bad. You're getting defense up 10 and then attack up 6 for Sturdy Impact here, which is not the worst. Like, the extra defense is pretty nice, and it also gives you the impact effect, so you can block enemies from doing a follow-up. But no follow-up is just way too common now, so you're probably better off going for the 30% DR from Remote Sparrow and all the other remote skills instead of Sturdy Impact now. All right, then we have Attack and Speed Solo and just all of the solo skills. I should probably actually bump this up to C tier. Honestly, like, the solo skills, they're not that bad. Yes, Distant Attack Speed Solo ended their entire career, but they still give the dual stats up 7, and they are dual phase skills, so you can get the stats on both phases, so they are still kind of useful. Although Catch and Ideal are way better, I would say. That's actually why I had them in the C tier. It's because Catch and Ideal, I think, are both better. But I guess we can be a little bit nicer to the solo skills. We can have them in B tier. All right, then we got Bonus Doubler, which can be negated if the enemies turn off your bonuses, so we got that in C tier. But it's still giving all stats up 6 potentially, which is pretty good. That you're getting a lot of mileage out of that potentially. And it's dual phase stats, but again, it does have a weakness where they can turn off your bonuses. And it also doesn't score as high. It only scores 240 SP. I feel like scoring does matter for these. So all of these other skills score in the 300 bins, so we can't have this in the B tier or higher. Same with Attack and Speed Form. We're eventually going to get level 4 form skills, and they're probably going to be nuts. Like, the form skills are still kind of pretty solid. They're really nice as Sacred Seals. You're getting dual stats up 7, depending on how many allies you have within 2 spaces of the unit. So, pretty good. They can be a little less efficient if you have not that many allies close by. Like, they start losing points in stats. But for the most part, you can get away with these, and they're really nice Sacred Seals. So, I just decided to mention them at least. And then D tier is Booty. Like, I'm not a fan of any of these. Blade Session is really nice as a seal. I guess the breadth skills are not too bad as seals either, but running them in the A skill is very dubious considering, like, all the better stuff we've got. Also, they don't score high enough. They score in the 240 bin. Then we have Flashing Sparrow, or Flashing Blade, rather, level 4, which is worse than Heavy Blade because you can only give it to infantry types. We've got the dual level 4s. I never liked these at all, and with the advent of the boost skills, I think these are just retired for good. The only good thing about them was that they gave you the HP up 5, and then they gave you all stats up 2, but now that we have boost, like, the gold border boost skills just ended this, because you're getting the HP up 5, you're getting better stats, then you're inflicting guards, so there's no real need to run these anymore, and they don't even score good enough for Arena, which was their entire purpose, so I can't recommend those. We got Death Blow 4, which is completely overpowered by Swift Flared Sparrow right there. You're getting true damage up 7, which is going to easily, like, top the 8 combat stats you're getting from attack from this. And then you're still getting attack and speed up 7, and you're setting up the tiles. So Death Blow 4 is in shambles. And then finally, Triangle Adept. Just thought I'd throw it in there for old time's sake. We used to run this on colorless advantage units that had weapon advantage on colorless types, but this could be an interesting skill with a level 4 because it does raise your bulk when you have color advantage and offense as well, so, like, that's not too bad. But we can't really run these anymore. It also only gives you the stat advantage against one color of enemy, so very niche. But like I said, just thought I'd worth a mention with these. So that pretty much wraps us up for the A slot passives. Anything, like I said, from B tier and up is what you want to go for. The B tier stuff is way easier to come by, whereas the S tier stuff is hard to come by because most of these are only on a single unit, right? So, like, that's pretty high investment fodder. So the B tier is where you'd be able to get some easier stuff. And then A tier is also quite good. Not too rare, but still kind of rare. So there you guys go for the A slot passive tier list. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And this is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, fellas. And I'll catch y'all again on the flip side.